Hello and welcome to today's Heritage Help video. My name's Alice, I'm the Heritage Librarian with Hobsons Bay Libraries, and today I'll be taking you through an introduction to the online resources available for researching the history of your family. The aim of today is to get you started with family history research online, so all the resources we'll be looking at today are available from your computer at home so long as you have access to the internet. I'll put up a list at the end of this video of the sites that we visit today in case you don't catch the addresses as we're going through the video. So you'll be able to write those down if you need them, or click on the links which will be in the video description. Since Hobsons Bay City Council is located in Victoria, all the resources we have a look at today will be created with Victorian research in mind, although some of them will be useful for researching your family around Australia. And we'll also have a quick look at finding out how your family may have come to Australia if they emigrated here. Before we get started looking at those resources, I just have a couple of tips to help you with researching and recording your family history. The first tip is to always start with yourself, so start with the information you know and work backwards, gradually uncovering the information you don't know. And especially if you have a common surname, this avoids the problem of accidentally researching someone because you think they may be an ancestor, but not actually having a direct connection to your family and eventually realizing that you were on the wrong track. Secondly, I just want to show you a couple of resources that are useful in recording your family history. So I'll just open those up now, and these will be linked in the video description as well as mentioned in that list at the end. These are available from the website of the State Library of Victoria, and they're two different charts for recording the history of your family. So the first chart is called a dropline chart. I'll just scroll down so you can see this. And this chart is designed for researching the descendants of a specific couple, whether that be you and your own partner and recording your own family, or perhaps the first couple you know who immigrated to Australia from your family and recording all of their descendants. And it just gives you an easy way to record name, birth date, birthplace, marriage date, and descendants of a couple. And you could, if you wanted, string several of these charts together to create a bigger family tree. The second chart is known as a pedigree chart, and this one is sort of the other one in reverse. So this is designed for recording the ancestors of a specific individual. Once again, whether that be yourself or whether that be one of your own ancestors whose family you want to research back further. And once again, it just gives you a place to record birth date, birthplace, marriage date and place, death date and place, and the parents of each individual you're researching. And you can string several of these charts together to create a larger family tree. Having had a look at those, let's get into our research. So the first resource we're going to be looking at today is the Victorian Births, Deaths and Marriage Registry. So to find that, I'll just click in my search bar up here. I'm just using Google Chrome. You could use whatever browser you're comfortable with, whether that's Internet Explorer, Firefox or Safari. And I'll just type in the search bar here, Victorian Births, Deaths and Marriages, and press enter. I'll just click on the first link here. And now I've got a few different options at the top of this page, and the one I want is research and family history. So I'll click on that, and I want to search my family history, so we'll click on that one. And now we'll scroll down a bit and I'll just do an example search to show you how this works. So the button I want is search our records now. There's a few other options on this page, such as getting some paid research assistance, ordering a copy of a certificate and so forth, but first we just want to search the records. So now I'll scroll down and show you what options are available to us. We could do a very simple search just using somebody's name, and that's what we're going to do today. If you have a look at the bottom of the screen, we also have the option to add more search options, to search by a location, names of parents and so forth, but we're not going to do that today, so we'll untick that. I'm just going to demonstrate a very simple search. So I'll put in the name of the person I'm searching for, and today I'm going to look at a man named Samuel Thake. So we'll just put Samuel into given name, and I'll put Thake into surname. Now to do this search, you do have to tick whether you're going to look for birth, death and marriage, and if I don't know much about Samuel, I might decide to look for all three of those things: birth, death and marriage. You don't have to fill in a registration number, that's optional, so if you don't know that, and if you're just starting out you probably won't know that, you can leave that blank. But you do have to fill in a year range. Say I knew that Samuel was born in the 1860s, I might put in year range from 1860 because there's not going to be any records about him before that. I don't know when Samuel died, so I'm going to be generous and give him 100 years to live. And we're going to look between 1860 and 1960 for any birth, death or marriage records in the name of Samuel Thake. So with those details filled in, I'll just scroll down to the bottom and click search. So here we have our results. We have 9 results matching my search. So 9 records of somebody named Samuel Thake, either born, dead or married in Victoria between 1860 and 1960. And we'll scroll down and have a look at those records and see if we can find our Samuel who was born in the 1860s. So first of all, I might look for a birth record. And there's actually 2 different birth records here. I'll just explain to you how to read these records. It can be a little bit tricky. So we're looking at family name in this column, Thake, given name is Samuel, and we're looking at a birth. So it'll be either a birth, death, or a marriage. So this column says mother's name or spouse's name. So for a birth record, you'll be looking at a mother's name. For a marriage record, you'll be looking at a spouse's name. For a death record, it's not always clear. A child's death record will have a mother's name. A married man's death record may have his wife's name. So you'll have to figure that out depending on the record you're looking at. It says unknown family name here. And that's just a bit of a quirk of this system because the mother's family name is actually in this next column here called mother's family name at birth. So Samuel Thake's mother was born Sarah Prentice. Similarly with father's name, it says unknown family name John, but we can assume that Samuel's father's name was the same as Samuel's and that we're looking at John Thake. No family name column is provided for a father. We can also see the place of birth, which is Preston. If you're looking at a death record, it'll tell you the place of death and it will tell you whether or not they were married at the time of the death and how old they were. Last off, we have the registration year, 1868, and the registration number. And this registration number is useful if you want to request a copy of the record. So we've got one Samuel Thake born in 1868, one born in 1892. And it's important to check these kind of details to make sure you don't accidentally follow the history of someone who's not the family member you're looking for. So if I knew my great-great-grandfather was called Samuel Thake and born in the 1860s, I'd note that and I wouldn't look at Samuel Bertie Thake, I'd look at Samuel Thake. And then we can go through and see some more information about Samuel Thake. So we've got some marriage records. One Samuel Thake married Janet Mary Poole in 1890. The other, Samuel Bertie Thake, married Eva Florence Richardson in 1921. If we pair this marriage record, Samuel Thake marries Janet Mary Poole in 1890, with this information that Samuel Bertie Thake was the child of Janet Mary Poole and Samuel Thake, we realise that Samuel Bertie is Samuel's son, and we can already begin to get an image of this family tree. So that's the kind of information you can find at the Births, Deaths and Marriages website. We'll now move on to the next website I want to show you, which is the Public Records Office of Victoria. So I'll just type that into my search bar, Public Records Office Victoria, press enter, and click on this home page. And I'll scroll down a bit to show you the kind of records that are available here. As you can see, there's quite a few different kinds. We've got passenger and immigration records, land and property records, wills and probates, and this has some general information tips about family history, so that can be a useful place to check out as well. Today I'm just going to look at 2 examples, wills and probates and passenger records and immigration. So let's click on wills and probates. We'll scroll down a bit, and this is quite simple. Once you get to the bottom of the page, you can just fill in a few details about a person and see what you can find. So say I was once again looking at the Thake family, and now I might want to look at Samuel's father, John Thake. See if we can find his will and find out what his life was like, what he may have left to Samuel, and things like that. So I'll put in Thake here, John here, and press search. Scroll down a bit, and here you can see I've actually got a lot of results about John Thake, and this does seem to be Samuel's father. Like Samuel, he's living in Preston, and he's died in September 1894. I'll just click on one of these files to give you a bit of an idea of what they look like. As you can see in the top right of each file, it says digitized item, which means I can view that online. If it didn't say that, you would have to go into the Public Records Office, which is in North Melbourne, and view the file there. If you're lucky, and often with wills and probates it will be the case, the item will be digitized and you'll be able to view it from your computer. So let's just click on this second one as an example, and this will be John Thake's probate. So there's a bit of information here, and I'll just want to click on view record. This can be a little slow to load. So here we are looking at the probate record of John Thake. So the probate is the administration and execution of a will. So if we scroll through this, I'll show you some of the information you can find in one of these records. First of all, we can read that we're looking at the will and unadministered estate of John Thake of Tyler Street, Preston. So there we go, we have now something of an address in Preston. In the state of Victoria, he was a labourer, as we knew from the introduction to this record. We have the date of the probate, 5th of October 1907. We can scroll down and read through this and pick up a few more details. For example, we can see that the letters of administration are granted to John William Thake of number 12 Belmain Street, Richmond, the eldest son of the deceased. So we can see that John William Thake is obviously the older brother of Samuel Thake. John William is the eldest son, and he's going to be looking after the administration of the will. If we scroll down further, we'll start to see an inventory of what was owned by John Thake and get an idea of how the family lived. So we can see what he's owned is the property in Tyler Street, and that was sold. Sale of the property in Tyler Street for £210. Scrolling through further, we start to see what happened to those £210. So we're looking at some administrative fees here, the agents taking some percentage of the sale, administration taking a percentage of the sale, legal expenses taking a percentage, and then we have a breakdown of each member of the family who got an equal portion of the sale, and Samuel's here in this list receiving £27. We can also start to see the names of some other family members, including the older brother John William, and we could begin to research them and learn more about the family and the relationships within the family and paint a picture of the family life. So that's just a little bit of the information you can find out in a probate record. There's more to be found here, and as you saw, there were several more results on John to read through, but this is just a start. And if you want to save this record, I simply need to move my mouse up to the top of the page, and this little down arrow will appear for download. Click on that. I can choose anywhere on the left-hand side here to save my record. I could just save it on my desktop, and I'll just type in the file name, Probate John Thake. Press save, and that's now saved. I want to go back and look at that another time. So we'll just go back now in the top left corner here, back to the item details, back to my search, and back one more time to probates, back again to the home page of the Public Records Office, because now I want to have a look at passenger records and immigration. So we know from births, deaths and marriages that Samuel was born in Australia, but we don't necessarily know at what point his family might have migrated to Australia. So if I click passenger records and immigration, we can start researching that side of things. So I'll scroll down a bit and show you the different immigration records which are available. They're all laid out down here. We've got assisted passengers, so that's subsidised passage, and that's between 1839 and 1871. Coastal passengers, so that's passengers moving around within Australia from one Australian port to another. Outward passengers, people leaving Australia. Post-World War II British immigration. Ship's crew, and unassisted passengers, so those who's paid for their own passage. Now, just as an example, I'm going to click on assisted passengers and see if we can find the immigration of the Thakes. So we'll scroll down here. This search is very simple. All you can do is put in a keyword. So just put in the name you're looking for or the name of a ship you know your family came on. Those are basically your options. Once you've done that, you can narrow down your search with filter here by putting in a further name. So for example, you might put your surname in here, but say you had a common surname. If I put in Jones, I definitely want to narrow that down, putting in the first name and hope that it was an uncommon enough first name that I wouldn't be looking through too many people. So I'm just going to put Thake in here and see what comes up. Just type in Thake and I'll just press this button to search. Luckily that we've only found 3 Thakes. And these records give you a bit of information about the people who have emigrated. So you get the age. So for example, if we take John W. Thake, he was 2 years old. He was a child when he arrived. He arrived in the month of June in the year 1857 on the ship Castilian. And we can see that 3 Thakes arrive at the same time together on the Castilian. John, age 32, Sarah, age 26, and John W., age 2. And from what we already know about the Thake family, you can start to piece together that this was John William, Samuel's older brother, as a toddler, and his parents, John and Sarah. So the Thake family came out once John and Sarah were married, but before Samuel was born. There's no way to save these records, so you'll just simply want to write this information down for your own records. Now, I've searched in the assisted passenger list, but you won't necessarily know whether your ancestors arrived as assisted or unassisted passengers, whether they were perhaps even ship's crew, or how they came to Australia. So you might have to do a few different searches to uncover that information. So that's just some of the information you can find on the Public Records Office website, and there is much more to be found, but that's an introduction. But let's move on to our next site today, and the next site I want to have a look at is Ancestry. Now, you might know Ancestry as a subscription service, something that you have to pay for, but Ancestry is actually available for free on the computers in our libraries, and it's also available free in your home for the duration of the closure of libraries. So to access that, I'll just want to head to the Hobsons Bay Library website. So I'll just type that in this bar up here, Hobsons Bay Libraries, press enter, click on the first result here, and now all our family history and other history information is under this Discover heading. So I'll just hover my mouse over that. I don't need to click. And then I'll just click on Family History. And Ancestry is here. Now for yourself, if you're accessing from home, you'll want to click on Login from Home. And you'll use your Hobsons Bay Library user number, which is the number under the barcode on your library card, and your PIN number to log in. If you don't have a Hobsons Bay Library card, you can get one simply by clicking Join the Library down here, and that's free to join the library. For now, I'm just going to click on Ancestry because I'm accessing this from the library. So here we are at the Ancestry website. There's a lot of searching you can do here, a lot of different records you can look through, and more complicated ways to approach your search. I'm just going to show you a simple search today to get started. So we'll just click on Begin Searching. And here we have the options for a very basic search. So you can simply put in the name of the person you're looking for and a place they may have lived. So first name, I'll be putting in Samuel. We'll be looking at Samuel Thake again. Last name, I'll be putting in Thake. Places he lived, I'm going to put in Williamstown because I know that Samuel lived in Williamstown. Now once you type in a place, don't press enter or click anything, just wait a moment and this menu will pop up which will give you all the different places with that name around the world so you can ensure you're searching in the right place. So I don't want to search Williamstown, Orange, Vermont. I want to go down to the bottom and search Williamstown, Victoria, Australia. So I'll just click on that, click search. Give it a moment, and here we have some results about Samuel Thake living in Williamstown South in Melbourne. And most of these results are electoral rolls. So that's going to be the information that was registered when Samuel was registering to vote, and that will give you things like his name and his address. So there's two ways we can access these records. We can either click on the first link up the top, Australian Electoral Rolls, and that will give us a bit of information from the record, or we can click View Image and see a scan of the page itself. So I'm just going to click on Australia Electoral Roll first of all. And this tells us the basic information that will be found in the record. So his name's Samuel Thake, he's male, we're looking at a record from 1903, and the place is Williamstown South. Now if I view the record, we will actually get some more information. So I'll click on View here. Now it won't necessarily take you to a zoom level where you can see the person you're looking for. So I'll actually have to click and drag this page around till I see the name I'm after. And there he is in the bottom right corner, Samuel Thake. And I can also zoom in if that's a little hard to read with this plus button here. And then I'll just drag the page again so the information is where I want it. So we can see Samuel Thake, he's male, he's living in Gifford Street, Williamstown, and he's working as a gardener. And if you look for other people with the same surname, you'll often find a family living together. So we can see he's living with Janet Mary Thake, who we know is his wife. She's living at Gifford Street as well, and if I drag this across a little so I can see, she is doing house duties. So she would be cooking, cleaning, and these kinds of jobs around the house. This record will only tell you people who were old enough to vote, people over 18. Therefore, we don't know what children are living in the household at the moment. There are obviously no adult children living in the house. There's no other adults with the name of Thake living at Gifford Street. So that's the kind of information you can find on an electoral roll. I'll just press back here, take you back to the record, back again to the search, and you can see we could find similar information about Samuel for all different years. We could see 1905, 1912.
We've also got a Samuel Thake living in Elphington, and we could have a look at those records and try and determine if it was the same Samuel. So I'll just have a look at one of those records. We'll click here to have a look at the basic details. Male, 1931 in Elphington. Click View here. And there we have two Samuel Thakes living in Elphington. Samuel Bertie Thake, who we know was our Samuel's son, and he's a railway employee. And Samuel Thake, who is a gardener. So chances are this is the same Samuel. You'll notice that Janet Mary is no longer here. So it'll be interesting to then follow up Janet Mary's records if perhaps she'd passed away by this time and Samuel was now living with his son, or what the situation was there. Now, if you want to save this scan for your record, you simply click the Save button in the top right here, and you have a couple of options. One is to send image home. So if I click on that, it gives me an option to fill in my email address, and then press Send Email, and that will be emailed to me, and I'll have that for my records. Or I could close that, and the other option, if I click Save, is to save to this computer. And then I'll be able to just download that to my computer, and I can choose anywhere that I want to save that on my computer. So I could just save that on my desktop. We might just call that Electoral Roll 1931 Samuel Thake. Press Save, and now I can open that up whenever I want without having to do the search again. So that's just a little bit of what you can do in Ancestry. There's a whole lot more that can be done through Ancestry, but that's just a taste of what you can do. So now I'd like to show you the final website we're going to be looking at today, which is called Trove. So I'll just type that into my search bar up here, press Enter, and click on the first result, Trove. So Trove is a site run by the National Library of Australia, which brings together a whole lot of different databases from around Australia. So that's library catalogues from every library in Australia. There's pictures and photos from all different museum collections. There's maps from different collections. But what we're going to look at today is digitised newspapers. So I'll click on Digitised Newspapers. And this provides access to newspapers from all around Australia, from back to the 1800s right through to the 1990s. And we can just search the text of any of those newspapers. Not every newspaper in Australia obviously is online, but enough of them are that you can get a snapshot of most areas of the country. So I'm just going to click in the search box here and type in the words we're looking for, which is going to be our man Samuel Thake. And I'm just going to open quotes before I type his name and close quotes afterwards. And the reason for that is just so we're searching specifically for Samuel Thake, not for any article which contains Samuel or Thake, but I want that phrase together, Samuel Thake. Then I'm just going to add Williamstown on the end here, just to narrow it down a bit in case there are other Samuel Thakes in Australia. So you might want to play around a bit, put in the name of the city or the name of the suburb, maybe the name of a street you know they lived in. You might want to swap the words around, write Thake Samuel, depending on how the newspaper was written. Often, for example, a birth, death or marriage notice will have the surname written first, so it's easy to scan the notices and pick out people you know. But today we're just going to go with Samuel Thake and press search. As you can see, I've come up with 6 results here for Samuel, and each of those is going to be a newspaper article about Samuel. Possibly not our Samuel, but about at least a Samuel Thake. So let's click on the first one to show you what this looks like. Complimentary social, curator Thake honoured, gifts to wife and daughter. Now, this is a bit hard to read at the moment, so I'm just going to click and drag this to the centre of my screen, and then use this plus button in the top left hand corner to zoom in. Now there's 2 ways you can read this article. I can either read the article on the page here. On the left hand side I have the text written out here. Now this text is done by an artificial intelligence trying to read the newspaper, so it won't always be exactly correct if the newspaper print is a little unclear. It can be easier to read, it can be harder to read. Whichever one you find easiest to read, go with that. And we can begin to read this article, and you can already see from this article that we can learn a lot about Samuel. So curator Samuel Thake, late of the Williamstown Botanic Gardens, now the Albert Park Trust. So although our other records such as the Electoral Roll simply told us that Samuel was a gardener, we now learn that he was actually the curator of Williamstown Botanic Gardens, so quite a high up position in the community. And we can go on and read that at the Electra Street Mechanics Institute, 130 dancers gathered to do honour to Samuel, his wife and daughter. So now we know he was obviously very important and respected in his community, and that he did have a wife and daughter. And reading through this article we could begin to put together a lot more information about Samuel. And newspapers are really good for fleshing out those stories about your family. So you're not just looking at names and dates, but you're starting to get an idea of who the people were, how they sat in their community, even what their personalities were like, depending on the article. Now, if I wanted to save this one for my records, I'd once again use a little down arrow button. This one's download on the left-hand side. Click on that. I have a few different options of how to save it, whether I want a JPEG, which is just an image, that will just be an image of this newspaper article, if I want a PDF file, or if I want a text file, so that will just save this text on the left-hand side here. I like to save a JPEG so I can see what the article looks like, but whatever suits you, you can do. So I'll just press JPEG. I have a few different size options. I'm just going to stick with the medium size because that's pretty easy to read and not too big a file. You can make a larger size if you want a higher resolution file, or a smaller size if you don't want to have a huge file. So I'll just click View Medium JPEG. You can see here I've got a picture of the article and I've got a little bit of information up the top about where that came from. So I'll want to remember that information and note that down. We're looking at the Williamstown Chronicle, 2nd of November 1912. Now if I want to save this, I just right click and press Save Image As. I can save that anywhere on my computer. I'm just going to save it on the desktop and I'll just call it Williamstown Chronicle, 2nd November 1912, and just press Save. And now that's saved to my desktop whenever I want to go and have a look at it. So there we go. That's an introduction to a few different places where you can do family research online. We've got an idea of who Samuel was, who his parents were and when they came to Australia, a bit about his siblings, his wife and child, his standing in the community, and we've been able to put that all together just from a few simple online searches. I hope this is very helpful to you in your own research. If you have any questions about what's been in today's video, if you want some assistance with your research, or you just want some more general tips about where to look next, feel free to send us an email at heritage@hobsonsbay.vic.gov.au and we'll be able to help you with any heritage-related inquiries. I'll put that email address up on the screen at the end of the video so you can write it down if you want to. Thank you very much for joining us and best of luck with your research.